Awesome. Thanks, Alada. Yes, as Alada mentioned, my name is Kavanna and I am the National Coordinator for Australia. This is my very first year, so I'm very excited to be part of the team, learning a lot from all of you already. But I'm going to be covering a little bit today on event planning and event coordination itself. And I'd love to, at the end, take any questions that you might have. So my name's Kavanna. I'm located in Brisbane, Australia. And as Alada mentioned, I've been in the event industry for over 10 years now, covering a range of different events from weddings to sporting events, festivals, music events, and more. And I've absolutely loved every second of it. So getting to pair my passion for events with space is super exciting for me, and definitely is what drew me to applying for the national coordinator role, like all of you. I'd love to start off with a bit of an open question here, just so I can gather a little bit about everyone's experience and I guess your woes to event planning so that I can tailor the session to your needs. And so you're getting out of this session the most that you can. So I'd love to open the floor, just if you feel free to pop it in the chat or come off mute. But I'd love to know before we kick off, what are some of the challenges you've been facing in planning your event so far? So whether you're new to World Space Week and you're wanting to ask some questions about events you've maybe planned previously, or if you've been there and for a while, part of the team, and you're noticing some common challenges that you want to discuss. So feel free to come off mute now or chuck them in the chat, and that way I can keep an eye to it and sort of incorporate it into some of what we'll learn this evening. So I'll give you a couple minutes just to do that and just to get settled in. Awesome. So financial and delegation. So they are two great topics which you can cover throughout the session today, and really resonate with, I guess, our role as event coordinators as a whole. So maybe not coming into the nitty-gritty of the event planning itself, but maybe some of those delegation responsibilities and financial oversight overall. So that's really great. And yes, recruiting volunteers, absolutely. That's a great question as well that we'll definitely cover. Engaging potential sponsors, absolutely. That's definitely one we'll dive into today. It's so important, and a massive part of our role is engaging sponsors and stakeholders to participate in World Space Week within our country. So that's definitely a great one. Let's jump back in. So I'm just going to cover a little bit of the basics around pre-event planning, just as a bit of a refresher. I know most of you, or many of you, have planned events before, so it's probably a bit of common knowledge to most of you, but I guess it's just a refresher to get us in that event mindset. So when we do come into the overall event coordination aspect, it's fresh in your mind. And if anybody does come to you asking for help or assistance with planning their World Space Week events, we can give them this information as well. So just a reminder into the stages. So you've got your pre-event, you've got your event planning, and then your post-event. So just reminding and a refresh around the pre-event planning, and the importance of setting objectives and goals. So I guess we can relate it to those sponsors, because if we identify really strong objectives and goals for our events, we can go to these sponsors and the volunteers and we can say, look at this amazing event that we want to run. Would you love to be involved? And here's how it aligns with what you're doing. But if we don't have these really strong objectives and goals, that won't communicate across to potential sponsors, which will be really disappointing because you're putting all this effort into making a really amazing World Space Week event, but nobody's involved. So make sure you're setting really clear objectives and smart goals, so that you can envision what would you consider a successful event for World Space Week. The second would be identifying and understanding your target audience. So are you running World Space Week events for children, teenagers, adults, families? Who is your target audience and what do you want them to get out of the event as well? And we'll just quickly also go through the different stages of the event planning process, because one of them is budget and finance, which I saw one of your comments was about. So that will align that way. So step one, budget. Identifying a budget to guide your planning and logistics. Consider any sponsors who contribute and make sure you're gathering a variety of different quotes so that you can compare. We'll jump further down the track into sponsors because we have two different types of sponsorships, financial sponsorships and in-kind sponsorships. So it doesn't always have to be a monetary contribution. However, if they are contributing financially, it's important to consider this for the budget. Second is creating a schedule, agenda, run sheet. This is where you're sort of planning out all the activities you'd like to be included in the event. So if it's a trivia for World Space Week, you're running through the different activities that you'll run at the event so that not only one, you can market it correctly, but two, you can ensure that all the planning and activities and personnel are adjacent to what you want to do in the plan. Step three is your event logistics. So this is where you'll build your schedule out in full, where you're identifying which vendors and stakeholders you'll need. You're considering the different dates, the venue, catering, and all of the other resources that you will require. Step four is creating a timeline. So if you're wanting to stay on track, it's important to create a timeline to help you identify when certain tasks are due. This is particularly important for things like media and advertising. If you're issuing media releases or social media posts, having a clear timeline of when things are due is super important to stay on track. Step five is engaging staff, volunteers, and partners. So I did see the question in the chat about engaging volunteers. So this is an important step. Once you've established a bit of a plan, budget, and run sheet, you can then identify the personnel that you need. So do you need stakeholders, sponsors? Do you need staff, volunteers? Who are you recruiting to come along and help you with your event? And what tasks are you assigning them? Which is super important as well, making sure you're delegating these certain tasks to different volunteers or personnel. And you're using your banquet event order or your run sheet to identify these tasks. It's also important at this stage to set up regular communication. So particularly if you are dealing with volunteers, super crucial to keep them updated and build your own timeline around the volunteers themselves, setting up different markers of when it's important to communicate with them. So of course, the week before, 2 weeks before, and we're establishing a regular communication channel with them so that they're in the loop of any updates that you might have. Step 6 is marketing your event, ensuring your event is being amplified to the appropriate target audience you identified in the pre-planning stage and discovering where your target market will be in order to advertise to them appropriately. So if there are families, are they at school? Are they at shopping centres? Where are they and how can you target towards them? Ensuring there's a booking link set up to track signups is also important at this stage as well. So making sure that you're following the flow of your customer's journey when they are booking in the event with you. Then just quickly as well, we have the post-event follow-up. So we're sending feedback forms and thank you emails so we can collect all that super valuable data, which will help us with our next events moving forward. We're also completing an evaluation of our goals and objectives to ensure that we were achieving those throughout our event and afterwards as well. Another great way to host events during World Space Week is through online events. And these are really great because they usually take less staff and volunteers as compared to in-person events, and they're relatively easier to set up. So here's a few tips and tricks on planning online events. So first, choose a platform that suits your target market or your objectives. So if your target market is teens or young adults, you might want to consider things like live social media platforms, for example, or if your target market is businesses, potentially Zoom or Teams meetings could be a great platform. We're wanting to remember we're testing our equipment beforehand, and especially with any speakers we have, just making sure that they are familiar with the setup and the run sheet there as well. As the event is online, it's important to have interactive elements like quizzes, PowerPoints, images, and videos so that we're portraying our objectives and our purpose for the event in an engaging way. We want to consider having relevant speakers to engage participants. So depending on the topic, you of course want to make sure your speaker is relevant to that. And reminding to record and share content so that the purpose of the event online can be continued and spread throughout for those who are unable to make it. So here are a couple of budget event ideas. I know, as the comments suggested, budget and finance is one big barrier to events. If we are unable to get large sponsorships or monetary donations, it can feel like there's not many options. But here are some really great ideas that don't cost a lot of money, but will still be able to get the objective across a World Space Week. So you've got your spacewalks, your in-house events, so potentially things like trivias in office or government settings, educational workshops, space talks, space theme movie nights or documentaries, space theme arts and crafts, and quizzes and trivias are all really great options, which I'm sure I've seen a lot of great events under these categories. So that's awesome. So we want to ensure we're reaching our objectives, yes, but we also want to be making and creating memorable experiences. So these are a couple of ways we can make sure we're doing that through our events. So ensuring we have an attention to detail and an atmosphere. We're creating a really great event through that. And we're also aligning our experiences and our topics to our target market. So if, again, coming back to the young families, if that is our target market, we want to make sure we're doing fun activities and experiences, hands-on stuff to get the kids involved. Consider your theme. So yes, well, space is absolutely the main theme of all of our events. Potentially, you might want to consider having sub-themes to be able to create these experiences. And consider keepsakes such as professional photos for people to take away from the event and be able to reminisce. So that's a little bit on event planning itself, just a bit of a refresher, as I know we've all had experience planning events. But I guess the next part of this session is around how do we coordinate multiple events at once. It's our role to oversee a number of different event planners as such who are planning their own events as part of World Space Week, and we're coming in to assist and oversee from a national level. So how do we coordinate multiple stakeholders at once running multiple events over the same dates? So that's, I guess, where my experience comes in. I've run up to 50 events in one day all over Australia in one of my previous roles as the National Event Coordinator at a allied health company, where we would run lots of different workshops throughout the country throughout the day. So through this role, I definitely learned the different skills needed to coordinate multiple events being run by multiple people. And this is what I found really helpful to do so. First was to create a really strong master planning system that works for me. It might not work for my colleagues, but it might not work for you. But finding something that works for you is the most important way to be able to manage multiple events at once. So for me, what I do is I keep a really detailed Excel spreadsheet that I've created with color coding and everything on there so that I can manage all the different events in all the different states. So in Australia, we have all our different states, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, etc. I would have a different spreadsheet in the Excel for each of my states. And then under that, I would have a calendar with all the different dates and all the different events running, and that way I can click in from there. Some other people like to use a folder system within their documents with all the different events running, and that way you can click into the different folders and have all the information that way. But whatever works for you, as long as you have a very clear and strong master planning system, that way it's much more easy to manage. The second is making sure you're identifying any key milestones and key contacts for each of the different events running in your country. So if there's special dates where you can support your planners by coming in and amplifying their message for certain due dates or timeframes, having that easily identifiable to you will be super helpful. And I guess in this as well, the use of any scheduling is really great as well. So if your planner is coming to you saying, hey, I really would like support in amplifying this trivia night that I'm doing, can you assist? You could pop it in your master plan, but you could also pre-schedule the post on your LinkedIn or your social media. So that way it's already backlogged, ready to go. The next tip would be partnering with sponsors. So again, coming back to these sponsors is so important, and because we can't on our own, we need the support of our country and our local businesses and our community to form a really great space week. So we'll dive into that a little bit later. Again, like I said earlier, but keeping that in mind, that will help you coordinate multiple events is having these really great sponsors and partnerships. The next and final step, consider a monthly or weekly email update to all your lead planners. So maybe once a month at the beginning or end of the month, you're sending out an email with all of the updates on World Space Week for your country. So maybe you're including additions of any new events, you're welcoming any new partners, and that way you're keeping that community growing and that community engaged. Because again, that's going to circle around and help you in the long run of coordinating these multiple different events, is building more of a community instead of taking it all on solo. So here we're diving into partners and sponsorships. So like I said earlier, there are two types of sponsors. One you may have dealt with before definitely is financial paid sponsors. So you're coming to them, you've got the events, and they're contributing a financial contribution to what you're doing. And the second is an in-kind sponsor. So this is a non-monetary contribution. So instead of contributing financially, they're potentially donating their time, their resources, their own contacts, anything that they can provide to support you in a non-monetary setting. Where do we find these sponsors? So there's a number of places we can find sponsors who will be potentially able to donate their time or their money to our system. So the first is industry networks. So places like LinkedIn or industry-specific Facebook pages is a great way and a great place to find sponsors who you might be able to collaborate with, because you have those joint objectives and those joint goals. You're going to the same place to find those. The second is conducting market research to find organizations who have hosted similar events. So this is a great option if you want to find sponsors specific to certain events that you're running. If it is, again, I come back to trivia, but if it is a trivia and you're finding a bunch of other organizations who are interested in and go a lot to along and support a lot of trivias, it'd be great to connect in with them. And that way you've got a sponsor. The next is through local business and local government, and I definitely see this a lot through World Space Week, which is fabulous. A lot of local businesses are really eager to get involved, and government as well. So reaching out to them and seeing if they can participate or support is a great option. The next is media and social media. They are super supportive of events like these, especially the educational space events. So if we're reaching out to them to support, it's a great opportunity. And the last is your community events and community groups, to reach out to more the public and the people that you have coming along to the event. If you can find them and see if they're interested in supporting, that's another way to do it as well. So now that we've identified where to find them, we'll jump into how to obtain them. So the first step would be providing as much information as possible on the event so that they're well informed. So it's potential attendee numbers, your objectives, absolutely, any plans that you have for the event, the topic, as much information as you can give them as possible will get them excited to join and support your events. The next is to clearly highlight what benefits they will receive. So yes, you want them to come along and support, but at the same time, what are they getting out of supporting your event? So is it access to your email list from all the attendees who sign up? Is it marketing placement on the branding? Is it the fact that they get to come along and have a presence and display their banner and give out their marketing materials? When we're reaching out to sponsors, it's super important that we're identifying what the best outcome will be for them as well, and including that in our proposal. The next is being clear on different sponsorship options to have something for everyone. So like we said earlier, maybe a small business won't have the opportunity to donate financially, but they may have the opportunity to have their whole team come along and support in any way they can. So it's just about identifying maybe what their objectives are and what their position is, and being able to offer something for everyone. And the next is providing any data and metrics you may have is just another great way to get them excited. So if you've got any previous feedback on events you've run in previous years, including that would be really helpful to obtaining your sponsors as well. The next, how to get people involved to plan an event. So there are a few ways that we can, I guess, cast the net wide to try and get people involved in planning their own World Space Week events. And the first is actually hosting our own mini event. So hosting a webinar where we're giving tips, tricks and ideas to people who may be initially interested in hosting their own World Space Week event. The second is sending out emails to stakeholders and potential sponsors, highlighting the benefits of what we do, and that way sparking interest that way for them to get involved. The next is collaborating with local businesses. For example, I have been communicating with Lisa from IAC Sydney, which is really exciting for next year. And we have been discussing setting up mutually beneficial meetings. So she's been so great in getting me involved with all of her meetings for IAC. That way, giving me the opportunity to then come in and encourage people to be a part of World Space Week as well. So building those connections within the community so that you're, I guess, being able to access their contacts as well is another great way to get people involved. And then lastly, creating tools or event plans and providing them to stakeholders so that they can easily host their own event. So again, coming back to the trivia, because I love trivias and I think it's such a great way to get people involved. It's potentially you creating your own space trivia or having one of your team members creating that resource, and then just reaching out to people, maybe schools, and saying, you know what, we've created this great resource. We'd love for you to get involved in World Space Week by running this trivia for your class or your team or your colleagues. And here are a couple of events that I have run and things that I've found to be the most successful in each, so that we can incorporate them into what we're doing for World Space Week. So the Paneri Festival, this was targeted towards all ages. And two things I found great about this event was having that consistent theme that I mentioned before, so that you can run it through all of the sub activities that are running, so that you can find businesses who can sponsor, who can relate strongly to this consistent theme. And then that ties into partnerships as well. So this event engaged really well with a lot of local businesses who were there. They were sharing and promoting it through their platforms, which in turn was supporting the event as a whole overall. So school formals, this was a great opportunity to look into the mind of teens and how they work from an event perspective as well. So having a great use of technology at the event is a great way to get them involved. And then again, having those keepsakes, so photo booths and things that they can have something tangible to take home, works really well for them. Family fun days. So target market is kids. Having really fun, engaging activities is a great way to ensure a successful event for this target market, but also making sure it's safe and supervised. That is pretty much it. A quick session from me just on events, and I guess trying to tie in the coordination aspect. So I will jump into any questions that we have now, and I'll just refer back to the ones that I had earlier to see if I had answered them in my presentation or not, but absolutely feel free to ask away in the meantime. So one question there, which tools or apps do you use for planning beside Excel sheet? That is a great question. There are so many great planning tools online that you can use as well, a lot of great software. A lot of the ones I've used in the past were paid. There are a lot of great free options as well. So things like Event Air are great if you can get the free version in your country. As well as Asana for task management is something that I use quite frequently, which you can also assign different events through to each different task on Asana. And then, yeah, Excel spreadsheet is the one I absolutely love to use the most. Great. Let me see other questions. Recruiting volunteers, I guess specifically, more like I said, for sponsors, just making sure that you're communicating your event vision as strongly as possible with your potential volunteers is so, so important so that if you're excited, they're excited. And they want to come along and be a part of what you're doing. So ensuring that you are really strong in your vision and your objectives for the event to be able to engage and recruit volunteers is absolutely important. Learning how to delegate responsibilities. Absolutely. So event is definitely a team effort. It is not a solo effort at all. It takes a lot of hands on deck. And we are grateful to be in a position where we have a lot of people who are willing to be a part and support World Space Week, but specifically with delegating responsibilities. So if we do have like I mentioned earlier, a great master planning tool that will help us identify the different tasks that we need to complete throughout the event. And then from there, you can learn who can do what. So if you've got a list of volunteers, you can see all the tasks that you have in your master planning, and then you can delegate them out that way. What else do we have here? Any Excel templates on event organizing? Absolutely. I will send that through to Alana so she can send it through to you post-event, post the session today. But it's absolutely the most crucial step, I would say, in being able to coordinate a large number of different events that are running at once. So I will share my tool with you. And like I said, it might not work for you. You might need to do a lot of tweaks to make it your own. But once you've got a system in place, everything will roll smoothly. Great. Any other questions this evening? Wonderful. Did you have any questions to add, Alada?
I have one quick question. Since we are going to make this workshop available on demand as well, I wanted to ask if you have any quick tips on participants who are planning to organize their first event. Perhaps this could be also a good question for our national coordinators, since they might also get approached by potential participants who want to partake in World Space Week.
Yeah, great question. And that's, like we said earlier, that's part of our role, is to ensure that anybody who wants to plan their own event has the support of us coming along if they have questions or need support, and we can guide them in the right direction. So if you do have that scenario where someone's coming over to you and they're saying, look, I've got this really great idea for World Space Week. I'd love to run my own event, but I just don't know where to start. You can direct them back to some of the topics we went through earlier, or I guess from my point of view, the biggest tip that I can give is make sure you're building a really strong master plan so that when you're engaging all your different stakeholders, you can ensure it's aligning back to your goals and objectives. So basically, to answer that question, have a really strong objective for the event. It will differ event to event, but make sure you can identify what yours is and what the purpose of the event is, so that way that you can align everything else that's coming along with it. You can align your speakers, you can align your activities. The event will run well if you can build that really strong objective and goal and communicate that with others. How can we collect feedback from participants and evaluate the success of the events to improve future activities? So we can collect feedback in a number of ways, but I would say the easiest way to do so is creating a feedback form, which you can send out to participants post-event. So you can send an email saying, thank you so much for coming along. We hope you learn X, Y, Z from the event. Please see attached the feedback form. It would be great if you could fill this out for us to improve the success of our future events. And that way you can link it to a simple form. Microsoft Forms is a free platform that you can use to collect this data. And then you would ask a range of questions such as what did you really like about the event? What could we improve on? What was your favorite part? What other events would you like to see from us in future? All of these sort of questions can really help shape our future events. So that's one way we can do it, is collecting a feedback form post-event. Or you can collect this information during the event as well. So you can go around with different surveys or quick forms throughout the event just to gather that feedback as you go.
Could you maybe share some tips also on the evaluation process of the feedbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the feedback that you're receiving from the forms or from the participants directly at the event, going through and evaluating the data is absolutely important to improve on future events. So if you're identifying that people are concerned about certain aspects of the event, incorporating that into future plans means taking it down, recording it, so that in the future you can make those changes. So I guess, did you have any examples, Alada, specifically of certain data that may need to be evaluated, or just overall?
Just overall.
Okay, great. Yeah, so just, I guess, making sure you're recording that for future use is absolutely important.
Mhm. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, seems like there are no more questions. Kavanna, is there anything you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just that I'll share any of the resources that I've mentioned today with Alada to share with you all. But if you at any stage need any support or have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is kavanna@live.com, which again I'll leave with Alada. And I'm so passionate about all things events. So if you do need to contact me, please just reach out. It's my pleasure to be able to work with you. I'm very excited about the opportunity. So please don't hesitate to email me. I'd be more than happy to work with you.
Thank you so much, Kavanna. It's wonderful having you. That was a very beneficial workshop also for myself. Just one thing I want to add for everyone that is in this session and everyone that is watching this workshop afterwards. Please don't forget to register your events on our website at www.workspaceweek.org. We see so many wonderful events being organized all around the world, and it makes me so sad sometimes when I come across to them that they're not registered on the website, and we didn't get to give these events the highlight that they deserve, or get to report it to the United Nations, UNOSA, in our annual report. So please make sure all your events are registered on our website. And we are looking forward to all the amazing events that will be organized all over the world this year for Space Week 2024. Thank you so much for everyone joining. Tural, I see that you raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Charles Hamanov, Innovation Specialist at Azar Cosmos Space Agents of Azerbaijan Republic. And I want to ask about the registering the events. As I have messaged to you that I have faced a problem that I have indicated all the event details that we have planned, but it has an error and hasn't been submitted. And we have submitted this Excel file, if I'm not mistaken. And I wanted to ask if it's considered as submitted, you will work on the website or
Yes,
how we're gonna.
absolutely.
Okay.
As long as you let me know, it's okay. It's no problem. And
Okay.
thank you so much for sending them separately. If anyone
Okay.
at any point has any issues registering any events, please feel free to contact me or contact the Workspace Week email address, which is contact@workspaceweek.org. And we will try to resolve the issues as soon as possible. Okay, thank you so much for everyone joining us today. And see you hopefully at the next workshop. And thank you once again, Kavanna.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.